So, we live in pretty divisive political times, I guess. Um, had a conversation today, more than one actually, um, dealing with politics and the issue of truth, which I just trying to move away from a little bit, just keeps coming back up because um, you have these statements that are made by people. Like one of the things that I heard today was that um, Trump was not president during COVID. Uh, what? um, Now, perhaps one would want to argue that COVID got worse under Biden. Okay, fine. I don't think that's true, but that's at least an acceptable point of view in terms of COVID 19 happened when President Trump was president in 2019, hence the name COVID 19. You know, uh, and that was not the only like just blatant, just non reality that was mentioned to me today. Um, Another thing that I heard dealt with uh, the crimes committed by migrants in the United States. And, I'm no expert on all these sorts of things. I'm certainly not. I've got my opinion, for instance, about how Trump handled COVID versus how Biden handled COVID. I have my opinion on who handled it better and about, what Trump and Biden's respective abilities to handle COVID, um, how that looks. I mean, I think Biden had a tremendous advantage in the way that he was able to handle it, for instance, because, uh, many of the things that he had to deal with were a later version of COVID, and many people had already, the vaccine had just come out, and et cetera, and all that. So I think that it was easier in some respects for Biden than it was for Trump, and I think that Trump did a particularly poor job. But I could see someone making an argument that Trump did the best he could given what he had. I don't think that's true, but at least it is an arguable point. But to say that it didn't exist when he was president, no, that's just that's just not true. Um, you know, let's see. Um, Trump has been saying that um, talking about migrant crime. Okay, um, and this is basically the same blatant anti-immigration falsehood that has been repeated from time immemorial by xenophobic uh, populists, really. That's who basically says these things. Um, and it's just simply, there's simply no factual basis for it whatsoever. Yet I heard that again today, though, that, I heard, where have I seen Trump actually hang anybody or hurt anybody or that kind of thing? Um, and that it's demonstrated that what he's saying about migrants being a problem really is a problem, and it's documented. Well, okay, it is true. It is true that I don't have any evidence that Trump has himself personally physically attacked any minority or anybody else for that matter. I mean, I suppose it is possible that there's some documentation somewhere that he's been in a physical altercation or fight of some sort. Most people have. But to my knowledge, no, not one. Nobody I know of has ever even remotely suggested such a thing. And certainly not anything like that based on race or ethnicity. So, no, absolutely not. But then that's not the claim that I make or other people make when they say that Trump is racist. We don't make the claim that he is personally going out lynching people or that he is going out personally attacking people or that kind of thing. So when Trump says, like he did say, that he wants to deport a large percentage of illegal immigrants in America, and if they try to come back, to kill them, we don't think that Trump means he's personally going to be standing there with a gun shooting them. No, he is going to employ the military or the border patrol or a private militia or anyway, somebody else to stand in to do that by his order. And that is the thing. Just like Charles Manson may not have honestly killed anybody, although, that is tricky. There is some evidence that he may have, but nonetheless, when he went to trial, Manson was not personally charged with killing anybody. He was charged with masterminding it, and he was convicted of that and jailed for life. In the same way, although Trump has never perhaps pulled the trigger on any of these kinds of things, he is responsible for those people who act on his orders or his bidding. Those people who do his bidding. Now, I don't know of any race crimes that can be directly laid at Trump's feet, and I'm not trying to do that. But I do think that he has emboldened racists in this country to be more vocal in their racism. And this has probably led to some crimes in some places. Now, the Charlottesville thing is one thing, the cop putting his knee on George Floyd and killing him. Those are things that happened under Trump that were those people emboldened by Trump's rhetoric? Maybe. Should that be laid directly at Trump's feet? I'm willing to not go quite that far. But nonetheless, the idea that Trump is racist is just kind of blatantly obvious. I mean, the narrative of, Haitians eating cats and dogs in Springfield is one of the oldest racist nonsense stories that have ever been passed around. Now, it's about Haitians, not about the Chinese selling, making, cooking cats and dogs or rats in their Chinese restaurants, but it's the same basic story. Just like the story of Democrats using adrenochrome that they get from children is the exact same kind of blood libel that's been leveled against the Jews from time immemorial. I mean, this is the same kind of despicable racist rhetoric. I don't know, by the way, that Trump's ever actually supported the Democrats and the adrenochrome children thing. I think that that's something that his supporters have done, but I am not aware of any time when he has personally supported that narrative. But clearly, those are kind of narratives that come out of the xenophobia and the anti-immigrant and the white nationalism and the Christian nationalism that Trump definitely uses. Now, here's an interesting question. Okay, let's take a big bad guy. Let's take the big bad guy. Let's take Hitler. Okay, let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that Hitler was not himself anti-Semitic, but he knew that anti-Semitism played well with the German public. And so, everything related to the Holocaust happened exactly as mainstream historians say it did. It was 6 million some odd Jews who were slaughtered in that horrific event. And also gypsies and homosexuals and Jehovah's Witnesses and the disabled and whoever else got on Hitler's shit list for whatever reason. Okay, let's say that is all true, but Hitler didn't personally hate any of those people. Would it make any difference at all? And the answer is no. You act enough like an anti-Semite, you might as well be one, whether you really and truly are or not, particularly as that public persona of who you are. So the public persona of Hitler, definitely anti-Semitic, definitely involved intimately and completely in those horrific events. And the same thing, I think, can be said of Trump. Doesn't ultimately matter whether or not he himself is racist or not, if he's just using race to bait people. Doesn't matter. He speaks like a racist, and speaking like a racist makes you a racist as a public persona. Like I said, this doesn't necessarily get back to Trump the man, but Trump the public persona, definitely racist. Trump the public persona, definitely sexist. Trump the public persona, definitely homophobic, transphobic, definitely xenophobic. That is definitely the case, and can be demonstrated through his public statements and his support for those people who make public statements that support these narratives across the board. So, yeah, truth. Yeah. So these people live in a reality that's divorced from reality. I mean, you want to argue that Trump did the best he could with COVID. You want to argue that he did a good job with COVID. Okay, fine. We can argue that. But what am I supposed to do if you're going to argue that Trump wasn't even president during COVID? All I can do is point you to the news sources that say that he was. And if you disagree with those, then I don't know what to do. And if you do agree with them, then what happened? Why did you say that to begin with? So, I mean, you know, arguing the nitty-gritty of what something means is very different from arguing the fact of something. Go back to the Hitler example, like the Holocaust. Okay, we can argue about the numbers. We can argue about why it happened. We can argue about the way it happened. Okay, but if you come across somebody who denies it happens altogether, well, there's not much you can do because the evidence is pretty plain. And if they're just going to discount the evidence because, I don't know, eventually it gets to the point where you just can't talk to someone like that. Now, I personally have in the past thought about what I thought of the numbers and that sort of thing. I see no reason whatsoever to offer anything but the mildest and most useless critique of the main narrative. Everything I've seen supports that it happened exactly as it has been reported. And, as horrific as that story is, that is the story, that is the history, that is the truth. But like I said, I could still argue with someone who wants to debate the numbers or some other aspect of it. But that it happened, and happened basically exactly like we have, no, it did. It absolutely did. And the same thing is true of COVID, and the same thing is true of January 6th, and the same thing is true of a lot of these historical things that some people want to deny for their own purposes. Denying reality for your own purpose, Anyway, we might come back to this, although truthfully, I'm wanting to move on to something other than this abstract discourse on truth. But hey, we got to Hitler, and supposedly Hitler arises in every single internet discussion ever. So there you go. Maybe we're done with this one. All right.